everyone. Welcome to Credential Up Houston. My name is Margaret Ford Fisher. The literature suggests that there is a growing demand for human resource management and financial business consultants in the era of COVID-19. According to the April 2020 issue of Financial Times, the coronavirus has created new priorities. The Financial Times, for example, indicates that businesses are interested in how to survive the pandemic and potentially thrive once the recovery comes. And according to the Journal of Business Research, one of the most salient challenges stemming from COVID-19 involves adjusting new and current employees to drastically altered work conditions. The concern is particularly grave for small companies that do not have human resource departments. So what do? Joining us to discuss the issue is Mr. John A. Greer, Senior Consultant with J.A. Greer Associates and one of the former presidents of HR Houston and a former employee of HCC as well, in charge of human resources. Mr. Greer, thank you so very much for joining us.
Well, Dr. Ford Fisher, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to talk about what I've done basically my entire professional life.
Well, that's exciting. So you will be a great resource for us and for others who are watching and who are struggling also with what to do if they don't have the human resource departments. So how are companies without formal human resource departments surviving during this pandemic?
Well, they're talking to lawyers if they have them. They're talking to their colleagues if they don't. They're talking to their colleagues anyway, trying to network and find people who can help them with their issues. Most small organizations, I'm talking about less than 50, probably 20 or less, have never really given it a lot of thought. And all of a sudden, we're now in these issues, these people issues that nobody ever thought about before. Remote working, for example. Organizations, the electronic organizations, the virtual organizations, if you will, the high IT folks, they've been doing remote working or remote work site management for years. The rest of the organizations in this country and actually in the world haven't. And the whole issue of managing remote workers, being how do you manage performance, how do you manage everything related to them, has basically been turned upside down. So they have to get by. That's what people like me are in business for.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I have read through many journals over the past couple of weeks, even prior to then, about some of the smaller companies really struggling now and are looking for the help. But of course, with COVID, given that many of them have lost employees, how do they now regroup in a way that they can then thrive post-COVID?
Well, unfortunately, many companies, particularly small companies, have had to cut back to the bare bones. They've had to cut back staff. They've had to cut back investment in assets to build the company. They've had to, and in many cases, they've had to work from home and hold the company together from home. So they are having a challenge now of they wanted to keep their best employees. They've got to try to keep those people and put themselves in a position to start growing as fast as this pandemic ends. Unfortunately, it will be a very slow end, not an immediate end. It's over, we can go back to work.
Your point just spot on there. And I'm wondering how in the world did those companies make decisions about norms and hirings and promotions and ethical behavior without an HR person there to help guide them?
Many of them have used outsourced providers who are third-party HR administrative organizations, and they use those when they're available. It's probably one of the things they've had to cut back on as well. Unfortunately, we're talking about many businesses that are struggling with their original business model. How can you run a restaurant when you can't have customers? How can you, now the blue collar work, the construction, all of those kinds of things, that's still going on. and sometimes you see masks and sometimes you don't. They're doing what they're doing. It's all of us that sit in an office every day that talk to each other next door and all of those kind of things and see customers every day. Although the customer contact grocery stores are functioning and they're doing a good job with it. It's really the small businesses. The small to mid-sized businesses are struggling because they don't know how to deal with all this stuff, not because they just it's so new. We're all dealing with new issues every day. The story on COVID changes daily. So what do we do?
You're absolutely right. It does. And, I was thinking also about some of those companies that do not have that support. Oh, the question is, like, what do they do when they go off the rails? If they're not earning substantial revenue anyway to maintain their employees, if there is a violation of ADA or Title VII, any of those, it's rather expensive to hire an attorney. So I presume that what they did was to have their own internal groups, not necessarily HR professionals who would work with them to help chart a course for their businesses.
I don't know that they're going to have third parties chart a course for them. They would have to bring in attorneys if they had some type of litigation or complaint. They would not. Most entrepreneurs who are running companies realize that that's something they don't want. They don't want to do, but they're not going to turn over their business to those people either. They'll take the advice. They'll do what they'll do what they deem is appropriate under their set of circumstances and under their business model, and then they'll go on. It's the ones that go on and have it happen again and again and again that then they start saying, well, I started this company because I wanted to be successful and I wanted to make money. I'm not a real good people manager. Quite frankly, entrepreneurs' strength is not in managing people, it's in doing business. So they go to resources outside, they get what they can find, and they go from there. There's an awful lot of attorneys in this city that are making a living off of that very fact.
Yes, and of course, as we mentioned before, there is a desperate need for people with the expertise, the experience to assist these small businesses as well. And so I'm wondering, as a part of the business model, that business profile, wouldn't it be an area that you would check off as a business, a small business or a large business, that you're going to have someone in that plan to help you with the HR issues?
Well, you need to understand most entrepreneurs start off as a company of one, and then they become 10, and then they become 20, and then they become 30, and then all of a sudden those issues start coming up. They didn't go into it to be in HR. They went into it to do technology, to do whatever the business model says to do. So it's not something that they think about. And unfortunately, some people have had rather negative experiences with the HR departments and the organizations they were working for full time. And so they're a little reluctant to bring in that. Plus, it's seen as overhead. It's seen as a expense that isn't necessarily valuable. And for an entrepreneur, you're watching every penny and you're making sure you have enough money at the end of the month to pay the check, to pay the employees, and to pay the bills. So they are very cautious with that, and I fully understand that. That's why one of the reasons why I do some consulting that's basically fractional HR. I work for a company as a consultant on a part-time basis to help them with their issues, to help solve their problems. They get their stuff fixed, and usually I'm go to the next company or companies. That's what we do.
That's certainly a great resource for them, of course. So we will talk about that, but we're needing to take a break at this moment. And when we return, we will discuss HR best practices and how companies can implement them. So please stay with us.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you'll go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
Welcome to HTC.
Let me teach you.
Let me help you get college credits.
Let me train you for a new career.
Let me change your life.
Come learn with us.
HCC, for everyone, anytime, anyway.
Welcome back to Credential Up Houston and our discussion with Mr. John A. Greer, Senior Consultant with J.A. Greer Associates and one of the former presidents of HR Houston. In the previous segment, Mr. Greer, you were making reference to how you reach out to small businesses to provide assistance. What are some of those specific requests that they have?
I need a handbook, an employee handbook. I need help with my benefits because I'm trying to get the best benefits for my money, and I need somebody who can pay attention to it. I'm interested in some strategic planning. I need help with performance management. I need help with compensation. That's a few of the items on the list. Some companies are a little more sophisticated. They're talking about, well, I need to develop my managers because I know they're the ones that are going to make the company or break the company. I need help in training and development. I need help in leadership development. I need to be taught how to be a leader. I'm an entrepreneur. I didn't know how to lead. Those are the people that you want to talk to because they understand where their weaknesses are and they want to grow.
It's amazing.
That's I didn't cover it all, but that gives you some idea of what they're looking for.
They are wanting someone who would really lead an
Right.
HR department, obviously,
Right.
because that's quite a lot. And obviously the services that you provide are targeted to specific companies also based upon their needs. In some of the reading that I was doing, the authors were making reference to what makes a workplace good. And according to one study conducted by Workforce 2008, there are specific areas that companies are scored on. And I'd like for us to discuss 4 of them and then go to another 4 of them in our conversation. So they indicated that as we look at the first 4, and this applies to small businesses as well that they may want to think about, they make reference to workplace culture, employee benefits, diversity and inclusion, employment development. Now, these are areas that you made reference to earlier that they're calling saying, this is what I need. I need to have somebody who will help me with my workplace culture because, you know, a lot of my employees really are not fitting into the culture that we have, or the benefits, the diversity and inclusion, the employment development. So tell us from your experience how important these 4 are to make a workplace good.
Well, the culture is a critical element, and because it's the blackboard, if you will, that you write everything on. It's the environment that you walk into every morning and that you leave every afternoon. And most entrepreneurs are very well aware of this. But as the company grows, and then they start the company out with intentions of making sure that everybody is family, if you will. Well, for 10 people, that's doable. For 50, 60, 70 people spread out all over the country and some of them all over the world, all of a sudden you've got 6, 7, 8, 9 managers managing all these people, which you have to have. And every one of them thinks that their way is following the culture. So you've got to get everybody on the same page. The key to that is the people at the top, the CEO, the executive team. They all have to speak the same language. They all have to talk the same way. And by the way, when they say the same thing, they all have to agree what it means so that they're all saying consistency and the employees are hearing the same thing from everybody. There's no opportunity for getting one thing from one person and another thing from another person. Then all of a sudden you've got a very, very dangerous situation where nobody knows who's telling the truth.
That can happen.
That can definitely happen. We don't, and you don't, and it is caustic. It's poisonous.
Yes.
It absolutely is. And it's the same way with the benefits. Benefits are complicated, and they are something that has to be explained, that has to be supported. Employees don't like calling insurance companies. They don't like when they're told that, oh, this isn't covered, or, oh, you didn't do this first, so it's not going to be paid for. And so in many cases, they have to have a third party come in and deal with those issues. Believe it or not, HR does that as much as they do anything else.
Let me ask you about another grouping as well, and not for you to choose one that you see the most difficulty with as you go out and work with various companies. They make reference to the talent management, human resources innovation, leadership development, and talent acquisition. Those are supposedly some areas also where if you're going to have a great workplace, those are the items that you need to keep in mind.
Let's start with talent acquisition because it's a critical piece. Prior to the Great Recession of 10 years ago, there were about 5,000 jobs open in many markets throughout the country. When everything collapsed and financial crisis happened, all of those jobs were still open, and in fact were still open at the end of the financial crisis, and most of those jobs are still open today. There is a breadth of talent. There is it is very hard for organizations to understand what they need to do to go after that talent, how to identify the people that are the right people for their culture. I truly believe that there is a job that for every person who wants to work, and they will find a job that they fit in. But the problem is identifying what are the characteristics of the company, what are the characteristics of the job, and then identifying talent that fits those two criteria, and then making them feel welcome, making them feel part of the company, bringing them in and doing all the things you do to say, hi, you want to go to lunch today, or have a cup of coffee. All of those things are things that make a difference.
You're absolutely right.
The first impression is what keeps people.
You're right.
The other thing you have to do is this. It has been said, and I think it's very, very true, that employees don't leave the company, they leave their manager. It's also been shown in several studies that managers' commitment to the organization, commitment to the culture, or lack of commitment to the culture have a more direct impact on employees' engagement and employee performance than anything else. So when you hire managers, you need to pay attention. When you promote people, you need to pay attention. You need to develop the managers. Otherwise, they're going to unintentionally run the people off.
You know, I want to explore that further with you as well, because Ann Mulcahy, former CEO of Xerox Corporation, and I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly according to her desire, in Business Wired indicated that employees are a company's greatest asset. They are your competitive advantage. Do you think most employers share that idea?
Anyone who's had top employees working for them that left, especially in a small company, absolutely understands that. That's where your success is. That's what your business model, that's where your business is. That's where people make the success. I can't tell you how important it is, critically important it is to get those people, hire them, and then, for heaven's sake, keep them.
Keep them, absolutely. I agree. So, Mr. Greer, we're going to take another break, and when we return, we will discuss innovations in human resources departments. So Please stay with us.
Today I'm going to talk to you about physics. Come on in, girls. Let's go. This is the first rocket to get humans to Mars.
Really tall.
I'm a rocket structural engineer, designing and building parts of the rocket. You are the generation that will be stepping foot on Mars. Do I have a group of astronauts on my hands?
Yes.
You can become a rocket scientist or whatever else you want to be.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Your blood pressure numbers could change your life. Talk to your doctor about creating a plan that works better for you. Start taking the right steps at manageyourbp.org.
Now I'm, trying to get better, stronger than ever.
The faculty at HCC represents the best of the city. They're committed to getting our students to their goals. HCC, for everyone, anytime, anyway.
Welcome back to Credential Up Houston. We are continuing our discussion with Mr. John A. Greer, Senior Consultant with J.A. Greer Associates and former President of HR Houston. Mr. Greer, we're so delighted to have this conversation with you. And the point that you were making about great employees and keeping them, I'm wondering if this is a common understanding among many employers that if they want to keep great employees who are committed to the organization, they need to treat them well.
I think it's an understanding. I think, unfortunately, as I said, when a small company gets large, it loses, the people at the top lose contact with those great employees. Mm-hmm. And they depend on the managers and the vice presidents and all the people in between to take care of them. And that's where things start to go a little sideways. It's critical that we spend all this time recruiting people. We spend all this time going out and trying to hire the best people. We get them in the door. They go to work for us. And you know what? They are the best people. But then they get ignored. And
right.
that's where the issue is. We've got to teach our managers that their job is to take care of their employees. Unfortunately, we have been hiring managers based on how well they performed in the job that they're doing. And there is not a 100% transfer in job skills between the performer and the manager. In fact, most studies show there's maybe a 50% overlap, maybe less. Well, and the person who's performing the job when they got promoted to manager, did they get any manager training? Did they get taught any of the things they need to know about what we're talking about? Maybe not.
Certainly.
And that's where our profession and the management, the whole structure is failing. We have to recognize that those managers are the keepers of our people, and then we want them to take care of them, and we have to give them the tools to do it.
You're right. So now as we look at technology and innovations, give us some idea how technology has changed the ways in which HR functions are handled.
Certainly the biggest changes are related to artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. The development of artificial intelligence, particularly in terms as applying to attracting talent, identifying the qualities that are needed, those elements that I mentioned a few minutes ago about what makes a great performer, what makes a person fit in the culture, identifying those characteristics through artificial intelligence, and then applying that to the application process, to the screening process, to find people that fit the company and to find people that perform well in the company. That's the biggest change, and it's going very, very quickly. Unfortunately, it's going to the Googles and the Enrons and the fill-in-the-blank large corporations because they've got the technology, they've got the people, they've got the equipment. The smaller companies are having to struggle. It's certainly getting there, and the HR systems that are being put in now are coming in with those skills, with those capabilities to some degree. But it's got a ways to go yet.
Yes, of course, and the small businesses need to know as well what is coming down the pipe, because as I understand it, there is not only the artificial intelligence, but supposedly there's going to be a major change in human resource management, where in 2025, it is said that HR professionals will take on the role of championship coaches. And, I was wondering, what will that look like? And how are HR departments revamping their departments to achieve that goal?
Well, we've seen the development of technology in HR over the last 30 years that has allowed us to start to free ourselves from all the paper. Now we've gotten to the point where many organizations are paperless. HR departments are actually becoming paperless, and I'm just absolutely pleased about that. I'm glad to see that, because now we don't have a paper personnel file to keep up with. We've got an electronic file, and it's a whole lot easier to manage. As a result of that, they have more time to deal with the people issues. I mean, instead of pushing paper, we now are there to help managers learn how to coach their employees. Performance management today is not handing out a performance appraisal and saying you're a B plus or a C minus. It's about identifying helping the employee find the way to be successful in their job. It's called performance coaching for a reason. We have to get those managers to do that. We've also got a lot of other technology developments in relating to performance management that help build employee engagement in the company. Unfortunately, the COVID crisis has changed the focus, but it's going to come back. We got to get the best people. We got to keep the best people so we can be successful.
That's so true. You know, we have students studying in the business programs at HCC. What would you recommend for them as they prepare and use their expertise, either in organizations or establishing consultancies to work with companies in need? You are an independent consultant, or your firm is an independent consultant. And I'd like for you to give contact information as well, because some of them may want to contact you to find out just how did you get started, and to call upon you for advice, as well as many others who are out there. But what recommendations would you make for our students who've completed the business program, those who are in the program now, and individuals who have the skills and the expertise but are out of work right now, who would like to start a consultancy, either in human resource management or in financial management?
Well, first of all, most consultants are bald and gray like me, or at least gray anyway. We've done work for a long time. That's how we built up the expertise. That's not to say students shouldn't aspire to that. There are a number of large consulting firms that are hiring right now entry-level consulting positions, and you'll pick up those skills as you go along. When you get to the point where you feel like you have a level of expertise to offer to others, you need to start thinking about your consulting portfolio, if you will, long before you leave your full-time job. Because the difference between a paycheck every 2 weeks or every month or whatever, and a paycheck that comes in when the client pays you or gets around to paying you, and then you have to pay all the payroll taxes plus everything else, is a very different subject. It's a very different set of issues. So I'd be more than happy to talk to any students that want to call me, or anyone else who wants to call me for that matter, to help them or coach them or send them to people who are better qualified to do it than I am, particularly if they're talking about the financial side.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds great. So how would they reach you? Is there a website?
Actually, my website is not up. They can reach me directly by my email, which is john@jagreer.com.
Very, very good. This has been very, very helpful for us, a very productive conversation. This is information that I'm sure many will feel is very beneficial to them, and particularly for the small businesses as well. So Mr. Greer, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your tremendous expertise. This has been very, very informative. And I also thank you, our viewers, for watching. If you are interested in credentialing up to work for a business organization in human resource management or finance, or to become a business or financial consultant, you can go to the website that Mr. Greer made reference to and the email address that he indicated, or go to hccs.edu/now and take a look at the mini certificate and degree options available to you. Again, thank you very much for joining us. This has been Credential Up Houston. We will see you again next time.